screen.
Yep. Okay, can you guys see this okay?
Got it.
Yep.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 220 of Pro NoCoders Office Hours. My name is Sam. I'm your host today. We are here with our members Ben and Nathan and me and Tanya. Before we get started, just want to tell everybody a little bit about what Office Hours is. This is a space where our members, Bubble developers, can join our Zoom and ask any questions that they want about Bubble. Nothing is off limits. In general, we can't promise that we have the answer to everything, but we definitely can promise that you don't have to struggle alone, and that's really the point. So if you're interested, go ahead and check us out at pronocoders.com. You can find out all the information you need there. Join our program. You can get access to the vault, all sorts of really, really awesome stuff. So again, this is episode number 220, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Ben, I know that you were talking in the Slack before about sort of like an email webhook system, so that when a user replied to an email notification they got, it could show up in some sort of message functionality and most importantly in your message data types in your app. Why don't we start with that today? So I think that we were talking about mail parser. You had mentioned in Slack that we're not sure that's kind of the best option. So I'm actually going to go ahead and invite you to share your screen, show me a little bit about kind of what this functionality is and what you're looking to achieve, and that should help us kind of better attack what we're doing here.
Sure. So what I'm looking to do, and I know a lot of applications do it, is when you get a new message from, say, a user messages another user, there's an email notification that goes out, yeah? And you get an email that says, user XYZ has emailed you, blah, 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 blah.
Sure.
And in some cases, and I see quite often, you can hit reply to that email, and the reply to that email will actually show up in the chat. So people don't actually have to keep coming to the chat. They can just use email and it ends up in the chat.
Sure. Yeah, that's definitely a really cool feature. Can you show me a little bit about or kind of let me into your workflow that actually sends the notification email to a user in the first place? Because that's kind of the first spot that we want to start looking into how we might include some of this functionality.
I could if I had one, but I don't. It was more a generalized question than a
Cool.
I'm doing this, how do I do it?
Gotcha. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take back the share if that's okay. And let's dive in and start talking about this a little bit. So I think I want to start by addressing before we just, because, I threw out the idea for mailparser.io just to show everyone else who wasn't involved in our Slack conversation. This is a site that the first thing that came to mind was, well, I know Mail Parser allows you to do webhooks for email, right? So basically what this site does is it allows you to set up kind of a dummy email, like a random email address, where if you send a message to that email, it will trigger a webhook that you can then extract data from the email that got sent and send it to whatever application you want. In our case, it would be Bubble. The concern that was expressed, which I totally get because this would be too expensive for a functionality like that, is that basically looking at their pricing tiers, Ben was feeling like he's definitely going to have about 10,000 emails a month. And most importantly, he has about 1,000 users that are waiting. So he was really feeling like this unlimited inboxes would be the plan that he needs. And then we're looking at, this might be, not an option because $300 a month is quite pricey for such a kind of simple feature, right? And so we want to kind of talk about, a couple different things. First of all, can you do this for free, right? Probably not in terms of just what you're actually trying to do, which is, take an email, and you're going to need a webhook somehow. Possibly one of the cheapest options might be to integrate directly with the Gmail API. But again, the tough part about that is you would be assuming that all of your users have Gmail. And so which is not the case, right? And so what you really need is, I'm fairly confident, unless you have alternative ideas, that you would need some sort of centralized email inbox that serves as the kind of webhook relay point. And so what I'd like to talk about first is kind of what I started to address in Slack, which is this idea that I'm not sure that you're going to need unlimited inboxes based on how you do this, right? So if we took, I'm going to kind of just set up a demo page so that we can start kind of scratching some stuff out here, right? So we'll call this messaging. We'll go ahead and create. Now, in my data types, let's see, I already have a message. I already have conversation. Perfect. So this should be okay. Yep. And the message has a list of users. That's fine. So we'll use this existing data structure. So the first thing I want to set up is just the flow that actually allows, a user to create a thread and send a message. And then most importantly, we want to talk about that initial notification flow to send an email to the user who just received a message. Because only from there can we talk about the reply to and how to actually get that webhook working. You with me so far?
Yep.
Cool. So let's do it this way. We're going to do a real simple bare bones setup. I saw in your app you have a really beautiful messaging interface. Mine's not going to be nearly as pretty. We'll use just a drop down element here. If I can get my inspector to appear. Let's see. First page. Okay. So I'm going to have this be dynamic choices of users. Do a search for users. So this will be how the current user decides who they're sending the message to. This will be first, last. And then we'll put an input below. That is the message. Here will be text. And then we'll have a button that says create thread and send message. When we click this, we're going to assume that no thread exists for the purposes of our demo. So the first thing we're going to do is create a new conversation. I'm noticing there's two different types. I just want to look at these quick. I'm going to use the ones without the hyphen. So I'm going to use conversation and message down here. So if we create a new conversation, that's all that's needed there. And then we're also going to create a new message. And this message is going to have the result of step one as the conversation. Its red is going to be add the current user. So the red field, in case anyone's wondering, is a list of users that have access to the current message. So because the current user is the one that wrote it, we can assume that they've read this. The other user has not read it yet. The text of this message will end up being the input that we used. So this would be input A's value. And then the users, we're going to add the current user, and we're also going to add whoever the user selected in that dropdown. Right, so here's our basic structure for just creating a message and sending it. Then from there, we are going to reset the inputs. And then we want to create our email notification. And this is kind of where the functionality starts, right? So when we send this email, the subject's going to be, you received a new message, right? The sender name can be the current user's first, last. The to is going to be drop down A's values email. And then this is what I'm thinking, the different reply to address. So here's where we can start talking about the basic concept of like, okay, how many inboxes do you actually need? Because I think what you're thinking, I think you were thinking that you need a different inbox for every user of the app, because you want to know, like, if someone replies to an email, you need to know which message thread that response belongs to, right? And so what I was trying to explain is, I think even if you had single email at email.com. So like the idea here would be the reply to would be one email address. My idea would be to pull that information out of the subject line or the body somehow, right? So if you have this reply to email here, you can say you've received a new message, from, and then so we can include the sender here, which would be, the current user's first, last. So now all of a sudden we have this information in the subject, and we can use something like find and replace or regex even, which we talked about last week on Thursday, to kind of extract that user data so that when the webhook hits, we have this information and we know which thread to search for in order to put this information in that thread. Does that make sense how I'm explaining it?
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Okay. So that's why, are you with me that given this and given kind of what I'm explaining here, I think we should be able to get away with only a single inbox. So I don't think we need unlimited inboxes. So then it just comes down to like actual volume of how many people do you think are actually going to be replying to these messages via email per month. At 1,000 users, and again, we're talking about this, Ben, and I'm recognizing $100 a month is still pricey. Like that still may be an option, right? So,
Yeah.
but I want to just kind of be on the same page about what the actual need is. 2,000 emails a month, I think, is if you were like you mentioned. Can you tell me a little bit more about your user base? And so you mentioned you have 1,000 users waiting to onboard.
Yeah, correct. So they're all like artist managers, sports people, or anyone that you like would see on TV or see on, film and that kind of stuff. And there's about 1,000 of them waiting to go on, and about 100 brands. So if they each send 2 emails a month, then we're over. So we will go over that 2,000. In fact, I think 10,000 may even be too low.
Okay. So given that, you probably want to explore other solutions for a similar thing. Again,
Postmark. I think Postmark. I just built out this functionality with Postmark.
Postmark like that?
Yep. Postmark. Yep, that's it.
So let's check out there. So this is a better structure.
So this is just they're simply they're monthly plans, but you can parse incoming email through Postmark. We just did it in an app, and the use case for that was the user was going to be communicating with like venues for company retreats, and the company retreat, like the person at the retreat place wasn't going to be in the app at all, wasn't even going to be a user in the app.
Gotcha.
So they were just going to be replying to email, and then the user could use the app or email or both, and it wouldn't matter. So,
right. So yeah, as long as this has the ability to trigger a webhook based on an incoming email.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we already built out the functionality using Postmark, so I know.
Awesome.
I didn't do it myself, but I know it works.
Yeah. So Ben, does this make sense? This this pricing structure seems a lot better suited to what you're actually trying to do here.
Yeah.
To kind of charge like per email over a certain amount, then obviously you get a lot more allotment here. So let's talk about the basics of so let me ask you this: how familiar are you with webhooks in general? How those work and like what the basic concept is?
What do you think, Tonya? Mid-level?
Yep, you've seen it. You've seen it in action a few times.
Do you want to try to go in and sign up for Postmark and see if we can kind of get this happening here?
Yeah, they have a free plan. You can use them
see.
up to like 100 emails or something like that.
All right, let's see. Okay, so we are in here. This is my first time looking at the Postmark interface, so it's a bit slow. Got me a little bit of slack on this one. But we're gonna, let's see, create a message stream. Seems like probably what we want. Server, my first server. Let's see what happens here. The name, let's say message replies. And transactional. Let's see, time-sensitive message triggered for one recipient at a time. Messages sent to many recipients at once. I think in this case it would be transactional because we're going to be 1-1, so we'll create that stream. Okay, and then it looks like they give you an API. So we're supposed to set up webhooks. Here we go. How to use webhooks. Let's take a look here. Check your webhook. Easy way to protect your API. HTTP off. Delivery webhook is what I want. Notify your application that an email was successfully delivered to the receiving server. That's exactly what we want. So when logged into Postmark, select the server, the message stream, go to the webhooks tab, choose add webhook. Okay, that should be pretty straightforward. So we are in the message reply stream, and we should click on the webhooks tab and add a webhook. So this is where, let's head back to, and let's head to our back end. And let's create a new API workflow. Reply do. Run, shows public. So we're going to copy this hook, try to send a test webhook to this. Whoops. Copy. There we go. And we're here. I don't think we need any custom headers for this. We should send delivery. Test your webhook. Let's send the test. Oh, it's not coming up as valid. Version test. Why not? HTTPS. Oh, do I have a little space at the beginning here? I do. I think that's all that was wrong. There we go. Should come through. Perfect. Okay. Questions about what I just did, guys? I know I wasn't narrating that as I did it. I was kind of like in my pants.
We
Any
knew
questions
all about
how
that.
I got to that point there with the webhook.
Any questions? Hey, Eli. Looks like Eli joined us.
Cool. So I'm going to assume everyone was on the same page. Just to kind of go over that again. Webhooks, for those who don't know, is basically a way to say, like, what we just set up is when someone sends a message, so I check delivery, when someone sends a message to this Postmark server we just set up, we want this webhook in Bubble, this message reply hook, to automatically trigger. And so that's basically what we just set up. The one thing we have to change now is that now that it's initialized, we need to remove the word initialize from our actual hook here. And then we can save the webhook. And now that should be live. So when we actually get a delivery to this server, in theory, this backend workflow should be called, and whatever we define here should happen, right? And what I should have done, let's actually do this again, because I didn't really take a minute. Let's add backend/initialize. And what I want to do is take a minute to interpret what data we're actually going to be getting from Postmark. So you can do that by looking here. So you can either see the raw data or kind of look at the fields up here. But we should get the metadata, which should include the email body. We're going to test this in a second, as well as a tag and things like that. So if we save this, we can now, let's start by just to test it. Let's create a data type called email. Great, and let's save some data to a text field from that email, right? So what we can do is say when this webhook is activated, let's create a new thing, and we'll create a new email that came in, and we'll set the data to be the request data, and then we can access this stuff. So I'm going to start with metadata example. Oh no, it might actually be the details, which is going to be the body. Let's start with that. Details. Okay. And so we should be able to test this. Let's get rid of the initialize again. So webhook. And cool. So we should be able to test this by sending something to this server. So now I need to go back to message replies and figure out what the email address is that I set up for the server. Library, activity, national string. Tanya, do you know? Well, I'm assuming it has something to do with the stream ID, like what the email address is for this server. Is there like a sort of base URL followed by the stream ID, I would assume?
I'm not sure. Maybe Eli has an idea.
Let's see here. Set up instructions. Template configured.
If we need like a dummy, if we need a dummy, what is it called? Domain. I can.
Look under settings. I believe it's under settings.
The ID is message replies. So I'm assuming that there's like a base email that you would send. Let me see if there's like more account settings. Okay, tokens. Send to signatures. My first server. Now, this should be the easiest part of the whole process, and I'm having the most trouble figuring out what exactly it is. Let me see it. Oh, okay. I see what's happening. It's not really an email address. It's an API call to Postmark with an ID, basically. Like, I'm not sure this is.
There should
gotta be an email, right?
There should be an email address. Look under setup instructions. There should be a server's inbound email address. I've set this up a couple times. Yeah, we've never had an API call. It's always an email address.
Yeah, that's right. Anytime you can send.
Yeah, if you need a domain, I can toss you a domain.
Yeah, that's okay. Inbound processing doesn't have any domain restrictions.
What is the to email in the code there?
Oh, this is what I'm confused about. It's sender at example.
Oh, that's just example. Okay.
It says you can send emails to morgan.dev.
Send it to myself, and this should.
Other.
Where's the stream ID? Like, how do I tell it the stream ID?
Maybe it's message whatever at morgan.dev.
Oh,
Yeah, I just logged into an old account, and it was at inbound.postmarkapp.com. It was just a stream ID, but they may have changed that.
Yeah, let's see. Postmark manual.
I mean, this is valuable time figuring out Postmark. I don't build with SendGrid anymore.
Anytime I ask that question.
Yeah, nope, I won't do it. I have so many problems with SendGrid with my clients. They all complain about not receiving their reset password emails, and they can't get their notification emails to work. They're always landing in the promotional section of the emails or whatever. And I finally, like, it's $90 to upgrade to the plan at SendGrid that you have to be on to get any kind of reliability, and even that seems to be shoddy. So I no longer even scope SendGrid. I only scope Postmark.
Sam, I have on this account, I have an inbound stream and a transactional stream.
Yeah, it looks like
on the same server.
Right. So it looks like I'd have to set up the MX records in my domain registrar to get it, like to set up basically inbound that Morgan. Like, I'd have to send some email address from my domain to inbound.postmark.app and kind of get that set up, which I have not done. You do not have access to your DNS records. Boom. Email third-party services. Configuring a custom email address forward with Gmail. Here we go. Create an email address. It's common to have the username be the action, like reply. Okay. Once you've created and verified it can receive email, you can configure forwarding. Click on forwarding. Where do you want it? Your hash. Log in to Postmark. Okay, so I should be able to use that. Your hash at inbound.postmark.app. So now I just need to replace that with my hash. I think we're getting somewhere.
So Tanya, would you even use Postmark for marketing emails like newsletters and stuff, or would you go to send that?
We use ActiveCampaign for that.
Gotcha.
Yep. I would keep the transactional emails separate from my marketing emails with the app.
Okay.
Now for the hash, is it looking? I'm wondering if it's looking for like a hash of the username and password here. Security. mailbox hash. Let's see, on the trash, the changes.
Sorry, Nathan.
We'll have time. Let's see.
Nathan, do you have a question? I can jump into another room with you. Nathan, are you there? Oh, maybe not.
He has given up.
He's given up. Well, he's
Kind
fallen
of.
asleep I mean, we're outnumbered, Ben.
I feel like it shouldn't be as
We're-
difficult as it's appearing. Like it can't just be message. It's got to be like something. My account name. I just feel like I'm making this a lot more complicated than it needs to be. Let's first see here. I have postmark. To get your account ready for sending. See, I don't even need to send. I just need to receive. That doesn't even matter. The sender signatures. Oh, maybe it's just my username. Let's try that. I'm just curious. I'm going to try to send Sam Morgan dev at inbound.postmark. What was it?
What?
Postmark at inbound.postmarkapp.com. Sent. Let's go back to servers.
Sam, if you go back to your servers and go to the inbound stream, it should have your email address in there. Up.
Default inbound stream.
Yep, under setup
Oh my
instructions.
gosh! I knew I was making it more complicated than it needed to be. Let's just use this one then. Get your server's inbound email address. Set your server's inbound web. Oh my god! So I set up that whole custom stream, and I should have just done it all here. Okay, so we should be able to set up that webhook again here. Let's just do that. So here we'll detect data. We'll grab this, copy it, paste that here, save the changes. We'll test it in a second. Third person, I'm going to copy this. Let's change this instead of initialize. Let's change it to that. There we go. Let's grab this. Go to activity here. Set up inbound processing. Servers. Save that. All right, let's test it and see if that works. Compose. There's my hash. Test message. Another test message to see if this webhook fires. Send it. I'm still in initialization mode. Hopefully that didn't mess anything up. Let's go to our data. Let's see first if we have any emails, which we don't. That did not fire. So why is it still saying set this up? Like I haven't set it up yet. Do I need to request approval? Oh, I should be able to go and name API tokens. A quick test there. Okay,
Go
so
back
we got
there.
401. I have to reinitialize this webhook with this
Yeah.
particular thing. That's the problem. So let me detect data. We'll throw the initialize back in there. Let's check. There we go. Cool. So that should have got it. We will. Oh, nice. So now this is actually better. We get more content here. We get all the attachments. We can really parse out stuff. Okay, we're getting somewhere. All right, so we saved it. Now I just need to remove the initialize, and hopefully that still fires. And now let's try this one more time. Send. And then over here. Not a good sign. Let's go back to activity here. Okay. Got him here. Process. Inbound hook. Hook. See the 401. We are close here. Let's see what's going on. Check data. We'll try this one more time here. Come back to settings. Back here with the initialize hook.
Do you have authentication turned off on the endpoint?
That is a great call. Check that in just a second. Save this. I do not. Boom. And let's ignore privacy rules just for good measure. Then come back in here. Remove initialize.
By good measure, he means if this was for real and not a sandbox app, he would come back to it later.
Yes. And then
But when you're testing, you want to open that pipe up as wide as you can.
Yeah. No, we're not saying that it's good to turn that off. We're just saying that when you're getting it working, it's okay to turn that off.
Make the pipe big. When you get a trickle coming through, then you can start closing it back down.
Yeah.
All right. Try this again. I have a good feeling this time. Copy that email.
Famous last words.
Okay, let's see. Give it a send. I just like to come straight here because we know if we get data, then we have a working webhook. Yes. All right.
Hey.
Well, the data didn't come through, but at least we got somewhere. So now we just have to find like which field. I think I just put the wrong field here for actually which field, but that's a good thing. We finally got our webhook initialized, and this is really going to be kind of the crux behind the functionality that you're looking to develop. Because from here, we should be able to. I use text body, and that came through, as nothing. So we just have to find the right thing that contains the emails body. Might be message stream. Let's see if it tells us in postmark here in activity. So here, this was
I think it's in a hash somewhere, and you got to send the raw JSON.
Yeah, there was a checkbox when you were sending the initialization. There was a checkbox to send the raw email content in the JSON payload.
Got it.
I remember it being in a weird spot in the body, like it was just like kind of this off the wall place.
Yeah, under the raw email key. So let's check that. Let's save. And I didn't update it. I wonder if we have to reinitialize there because we added, I don't have the raw body field. Yeah, so I do have to reinitialize. Back to detect data, copy the initialization hook. Here, initialize, check. There we go. Save the changes. Save that. And move the initialization. Then come back here. Hopefully now we should see raw email. Awesome. Okay. Let's grab our email here. Sent. All right. There we go. So we have some bodies. So now the idea here is, it took us a little while to get to this point, but that was all the hard work, because from here you actually have data coming into the app. You could either do it through this kind of like intermediary data type where the first thing you do is translate the JSON payload into like a new record and then create something from that. But honestly, with what you're trying to do, I'd probably, instead of creating an email data type, I'd just right away, create a new message. Now, so the tricky part is we want to be able to extract which conversation that message belongs to. And that's kind of where, good subject naming and things like that are going to come into play. Again, if you're putting this postmark email as the reply to of the initial email that you're sending. So if we go back to our messaging page, and then when we send this email, this is now the reply to. So we know that when they reply, the subject is kind of set in stone. It's going to be, basically this, but just with RE colon in front of it, right? So we know that the sender's first and last name is in the subject here, right? And we just have to extract it with regex. So I would probably use a regex expression to get this, just like we did last week, which is, find anything between, I guess you could, because you know what this subject is going to be, you could use the exact expression, like find me something between this string and an exclamation point. And
you could probably just use the emails though, right? Like, because if you're sending this stuff by email, won't Postmark have an actual email address to pair with?
Well, so that's what we're talking about, which is the reply to is always going to be the same here. So the idea is, regardless of which user sends the message, the reply to is the same Postmark catch-all email address. And so what we're trying to do is extract out user information from other areas. I suppose we could probably do it in the CC, right? Because if you're
even at the bottom,
I do think you can send it. Go ahead, Ben.
Sorry, at the bottom of the body, couldn't you just have the conversation's unique ID? Because that way there's only going to be one of those ever.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome idea. I was trying to do it in a way that avoided putting like that type of like data into the actual body of the email itself. You also want to, so I guess let's.
Sam, I do think you can, on the reply to email, you can do plus and send an ID like that, and they will pull it out and send it back in metadata.
Really?
So you can pass whatever data you want, and then they'll send it back in some kind of a hash that you can then extract.
Like this? Just add the plus to the reply to email like that?
Between the ID and the @ symbol.
Between the okay, got it. So here.
Now don't quote me on the plus. I'm pretty sure it was plus, but it was something in the email that you could just append to it, and they would flip it around when it was replied to, and you could pull it out of what was sent back.
Let's test this, because that would be genius, Eli. Let's see here. So plus current user's unique ID. So in theory, we have the same thing. So what I want to do now is say, let's see, the body is going to be input A's value. And okay, so let's test this. It's going to drop down value A. So I need to be a user in this app in order for this to work successfully with the workflows I have set up. So let me just add myself. We'll do Sam Morgan. Okay. So if I preview this now,
Yeah, this is saying it'll come back in the mailbox hash field.
like as part of the payload, right?
Part of the payload. Yep.
Yeah. So what I want to do is I'm just going to test this and do a reply to, and then just look at the logs and see what kind of payload I get back from that webhook. Because I think that's going to be the best. If this works, then this will definitely be the best way to attach the conversation thread. That's message. Let's create a thread and send a message. So in theory, I should have gotten something here. There it is. If I reply here, there's my. So there's the thing with the plus symbol, and there's a unique ID in there. Here's a sample message testing plus hashing technique. So that goes back. Check here. I'm not sure that. Let's check in our data here. I think I updated the webhook to just create a message directly, right? Let's see, backend workflows. Oh, I actually had both. Message didn't do anything. Okay. Oh, interesting. Did create a new email. It gave us the raw data. That's good. So let's go to our logs. Let's go to our server logs. There we go. There's all the data. Oh, I'm trying to find that unique ID. Wait. There it is. So let's see. When I do this, when I create a message, just want to see request data. So where were you thinking it was coming through? The mailbox?
Mailbox hash, I believe, is where it's coming from.
So the Texo mailbox hash. Cool. Let's test this one more time. Let me just add a field to my email data type, just to see if we can split that out. So then here, when we create, let's get rid of message for now. We create the email, put the raw email there. Let's put just the hash value here. Now, from full mailbox hash or just the mailbox hash? I think just the mailbox hash. And then let's go ahead and test that one more time.
I like that it's staying in the same thread. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. All right, so we've just sent that reply again. We should now be able to refresh this. Okay, and now I have two versions. And then if I pull up the additional field, here's the moment of truth. Eli, you genius. That is awesome. I love that technique. Very cool. So yeah, that's definitely what I would do. You have the mailbox hash. We used current users. I would do the conversation thread, right? So if you put the conversation thread's ID as part of that mailbox, then you can extract it using the mailbox hash. And then when it comes time for the webhook, you'd end up just programming in, you're going to end up creating a new message. And then the magic happens when you say, okay, the conversation thread equals do a search for conversations where the unique ID equals request data's mailbox hash.
Gotcha.
There you have it. So now you have the conversation that you need, grab the first item, and now you know that your message is being put in the right place. I'm assuming at this point, I'm just trying to make sure we don't need a flow to create a conversation thread if one doesn't exist. And based on this flow, no email would be sent to in other words, a user wouldn't have an opportunity to reply and have this flow even trigger if a conversation thread didn't already exist for them, because this isn't the first message. So I don't think that we have to worry about that. This should kind of achieve what you're looking for. Again, this would be the same on any of these services. I think we chose Postmark based on the pricing structure. Seems to work well for what you're trying to achieve. But the concept of setting up a webhook, I love that hash technique from Eli. That was awesome. And I'm definitely going to mess around with that a ton because I learned something new today. That was really cool. Any questions on that, Ben?
Look, there's definitely going to be, I'm going to have to go back and watch this again because there's definitely parts where you guys may as well have been talking German. But no, I mean, for what it does, it seems relatively simple.
It's pretty straightforward. It's really just about getting that webhook. Most of that, honestly, most of the confusing aspects of what we just went through was me not being super familiar with Postmark. And so like a little bit of just digging into that, you kind of saw, like when you rewatch this, you'll see my process of kind of poking around Postmark and trying to figure out where the things I need are. But the process remains the same, whether you use Postmark or, like you said, mailparser.io, or I'm sure there's tons of other services. So definitely price explore. Like, there may be a cheaper option than Postmark. I don't know. But ultimately, the process of setting up that webhook, using the mail hash for the unique ID, of like that should all remain the same no matter which service you end up using.
Yep. Cool.
Sense?
Awesome.
Cool. Other stuff, then it looks like Nathan had to back out. Any other, questions? We still got time here, so if you had other stuff you want to chat about.
I'm in contact with Nathan. Don't worry. So, yeah, he's being well taken care of. Yeah. That was a worthwhile 45 minutes for sure.
That was fun.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I like that one.
Very cool. What's up, Eli?
I'm working. I was like, hey, there's some other devs somewhere I know I can hook up with. So.
Yep, here we are.
How cool is that new function just announced, peeps?
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. I actually haven't seen that yet, and I am very, very curious to. I'm sure you guys have all.
I've been trying, and I can't get it to work.
I haven't tried it yet, so
I'm gonna start just because I know I'm gonna group these in a group. Oh, and it's new responsive only. I gotta be upgraded. It's not copy. It's fine.
theoretically, it's awesome.
Yes.
Okay, so
And if you can drag an element from one group into the other without having to like get it inside the red box.
Yeah, I think that's the whole idea here.
Gee whiz, that's just.
So I have like group A right now, which contains my elements. Then I have these kind of phantom groups B and C. So I wanted to just kind of see here. Apparently it's about just clicking and holding. So if I like click and hold drop down A, yeah, and then I get this line, I can drop it right into group B. Boom.
There you go.
Super cool. Take my button, put that in group C. Love that. And then so it's not obviously not going to constrain to the size. So you're going to need to, you would need to come in here and fix that. I actually think though that's because all my containers are fixed. I think if the container was set,
you probably got to change your page.
Yeah. Let's make the page column. Let's go now to group C. Yeah. So if this wasn't fixed with in the first place and it was like fit to content, yeah, that would work. Really cool. And then even like if I wanted to take all of group B or all of group C and nest it inside of group A, I could do that as well. That's super cool. So yeah, this is a game changer. That's awesome.
What's the use case, do you think, for rearranging the order that they're in inside that group? Would that depend on where it's sitting in the group?
Yeah, so like in a column group, well, I just made a complete mess of this whole page. Let me
Sam, how are you moving that? I can't get it to move.
So I'm just clicking and holding, and then I'm just dragging. So I'm still holding down the mouse.
I mean, I've been holding for like a minute here.
And you're on a new responsive page?
Yeah.
You're on the right bubble version here? Is there like a...
I'm on the latest bubble version.
This is just the Sandbox app, yeah.
Are you on one with like the delayed release or whatever?
Oh, I'm on Pro NoCoders. Is that delayed release?
It used to be, but we downgraded to the personal plan, so it shouldn't allow us to be anymore.
Oh well,
Yeah,
I'll find.
mine's not doing it either.
I wish I could help you. Like mine is.
It'll be available soon enough.
I don't
I
know.
mean, he's in the go in the February sandbox, Eli. If you're in Pro NoCoders, you should have access to February sandbox, unless you're signed in.
I'm in my account.
Got it.
It's fine. I'll get access to it.
Yeah, eventually it'll work for you.
That's the way it works.
It's very cool. I can't wait to see it with the popped out elements tree.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for real.
Now, now there's a real use for the elements tree. A lot of people will start using the elements tree again who were gave up on it.
Yeah.
For sure. Ben, were you asking what the use case is for dragging and dropping to reorder this stuff like this?
Yeah, that's what I was checking, was that it would do that, reorder.
Yeah, I think so. I really like these controls here.
So do I.
Responsive. Yeah. So I don't know that I'll end up using that functionality a lot. I guess if I'm over here more often anyway, and you kind of see something and it should be below, it's kind of cool to reorder it that way. But I've gotten so used to these previous and make last and make first buttons that I have a hard time seeing myself moving away from those.
Mm-hmm.
I see it's gonna
for moving groups.
It's gonna be more for between groups, taking one element and moving it to another group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. That's gonna be really cool. And also taking groups and nesting them within each other, which I do a lot and always find to be a giant pain. So now, if I were gonna, let's say this is a form and I were gonna make kind of a side by side, double form thing. I feel like now it would be as easy as taking this and making it a row, making sure it's wide enough and making sure it's tall enough.
Or if you have two responsive groups that you want to group, but you don't want everything to be fixed with again.
Right. Yeah, so now I have these two kind of forms. And if I want them both in group, I can take full groups and click and drag. Group C,
that is so cool.
Group B, and now all of a sudden they're side by side, which is really cool. I like that.
Can you check something for me on that, Sam?
Yeah.
If you undo that, they were saying that it may have launched already, where you could now just drag and drop them on the page. You didn't have to move it in the editor. You could just pick that up and drag it into that group. No, it's not done yet. Okay.
So you can do that. It's just that with the new responsive, the reason that didn't work just now is because this group isn't tall enough. So this wasn't recognizing that there were borders there that it could fit within. If if for example, this is more I'm testing it because I'm assuming this is the case, but I want to make sure. If this group is tall enough, in theory, I should be, so then it highlights and I can drag and drop just fine. But the group, the disadvantage to that is sometimes your group's not always tall enough. So now with this type of action, you don't have to worry about what the settings are here. It should just kind of adjust and make it work for you,
awesome.
Which I think is really cool. Spaced out.
I think that was maybe one of the most requested things when they said, "What do you want for Christmas?" It's February, but hey, better late.
I've been talking about this, that they've needed this feature since discovered Bubble. How do you? I mean, if nothing else, I'm hoping to. I guess the other thing that Bubble's always lacked in that I think this hopefully should fix is just the basic concept of Z indexing stuff and just what's on top of what.
Right. I was thinking, does this help with the tab order? Because we have a plugin to help us with tab order because it gets so convoluted.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Their tab order is worse on the responsive engine than it was on the old one.
Than it was on the other one.
Really?
Yeah, I just recently experienced that in an app with
because they don't adjust the position in the HTML tree. They just change the order operator on the Flex. And so the browser is just going with what's in the HTML, and
right.
They'll fix it at some point, but Of course, we've been saying that for 5 years too.
He'll fix it at some point.
That's funny.
Awesome. Well, this has been a fantastic office hours, gentlemen.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was a
Thank you so much.
great question, Ben, and fun challenge to take on. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
Cool. What do you think, Sam? Should we wrap it up and move into after hours?
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and do that? We'll close down. Thank you guys
After
for
hours.
joining.
After
We're moving into the
hours.
After hours session now. Don't forget to check us out on pronocoders.com, and we will see everybody next time.